set? Okay, well, let me call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Wednesday, January 9, 2013. Just want to let everyone know that two of our members are recovering from surgery. It has nothing to do with their duties as the member of the Board of Selectmen, but Beth Heller was operated on today, and hopefully she's home, and Tom Kennefic was operated on Monday, and I know he is home. So we wish them well, and hopefully they're watching this meeting. So the first item on our agenda is a presentation of an automatic electronic defibrillator donated by the Woodbridge Rotary Club, and Andrew Skolnick is here, who is, I believe, the president. And
immediate past president.
Immediate past president, and Mary Ellen LaRocque is with him. So
you know what I wanted to say? Mike Margansky's coming too. And he was going to take the defibrillator, and we were going to use that in the photo too.
okay, so do you want to hold on that?
Is Medic 44 out? Can you tell?
Lily was going over there. He was
The car is still in?
talking.
I'll call him right away. Come on.
Okay, I know that our council has another engagement this evening, and he'd like to be moved up, so maybe in the meantime, while we're waiting for
Very well.
Mr. Margansky, we will, I'll ask permission from the board to move up the town council's report to number 2 on the agenda. Entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, Jerry, town council's report.
I apologize, but I have to be someplace that is unavoidable in a little while, so I thought I asked that if I can just present my very short report today, and I guess has the memorandum of understanding been
Yes.
distributed?
Yep.
You know,
It's at your,
Right.
at their place, yeah.
Several months ago, we talked about the fire association's incentive and longevity payments that the town has been making for several years now, and we wanted to reduce the terms of those payments to some kind of a document. So we would have something in our file, we would have all three parties to the understanding sign off on it for future reference. And the three parties are the Volunteer Fire Association, the town of Woodbridge, and the Prudential Insurance Company, who was the entity that actually received the funds to provide annuity for certain eligible firefighters for both longevity and incentive pay. I prepared this very short memorandum of understanding. I don't believe that the association has seen it yet, so I think it's appropriate to get their input from it, and hopefully we can get this signed. And if there are any comments about it now, maybe we can talk about it. It's fairly self-explanatory and very clear.
So in a nutshell, historically, the town has, over the past several years, appropriated $70,000 to the Volunteer Fire Association for use as a bond for their members. And they have proposed that they be given an additional option, the same amount of $70,000, but to participate in an annuity program with Prudential. So members can opt either to have the bond or the annuity. It's the same amount of money, and this memorandum of understanding reflects that. So I guess the point tonight is, does anyone have any comments about that or suggestions about it? And we can take a vote on it.
And if the Board of Selectmen approves it, then we can pass it on to the other parties.
So if everyone has had a chance to read it, I entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding.
I have just a quick question.
Go ahead. Yep.
Do we take on any fiduciary responsibility in connection with
No,
this?
No.
the money is given directly to Prudential for the benefit of the association.
And it's their issue, okay.
It's directed in accordance with, it's invested in accordance with the association
Okay.
directions.
Thank you.
I thought we had already acted on this.
We did, but we
We did.
didn't have the actual
It
document.
was to,
The concept we approved.
okay.
The money was paid in August of 2000.
Right, I remember now, Then I would move that the board adopt this MOU as presented.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Abstain.
One abstention. The next is executed settlement document, R&H Group versus Town of Woodbridge.
Yes, and that is, we talked about, the board approved this settlement with an entity that took an appeal of their assessment, their real estate assessment. The settlement has been signed off by all the parties. The board has approved the settlement. They've just signed, I think, a signed stipulation that's in the package for you. I don't think there's any action that's needed, just informational purposes that the settlement is completed. The last item on my agenda is just a very short report on the animal control lawsuit that the town instituted concerning obtaining ownership of 3 dogs that were taken into the animal control facility by the ACOs. The court, after a day and a half trial, contested trial, awarded the ownership of these dogs to the animal control organization. So the case is over. We prevailed, and
And the town was also reimbursed for veterinary bills?
the town, we got a judgment for reimbursement of costs. Now we have to collect it from the actual owner of the dog, prior owner of the dogs, which we will be in the process of doing. So Karen Lombardi was in court and testified and did a very good job.
Okay.
And that's the 3 items I have, unless there's any questions.
Okay. No other? As it says here?
No other.
Okay.
I don't have other.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see Mr. Morganski's arrived, so, Andrew? Oh, take a picture, all right, okay. All right.
I'm gonna take 2.
I practiced law for 3 years.
Yeah, there you go.
I've never knew that this
2, 3.
is how you got custody of the dog.
I know, take 1.
Is this statute trial?
What was your defense?
May it never be used.
And I want to thank the Rotary Club for making this gift to the town. Thank you very much. It's our pleasure
to be able to do so.
Thank you. Okay. Take care.
It's fascinating. Okay, or you can try for your association. Nice job.
Dr. Stull, I think, will be here a little later, so we'll pass on that. The next thing we have is the Connolly Dam update. And I know Frank DeLeo is here, and is Gwen here?
If you'd like me to begin, Gwen should be here shortly. I have a few items I'd like to go over getting into that.
Sure. Well, however you want to do it, Frank.
Yeah, and Gwen will be here shortly. I believe she'd like to do a short presentation.
Take care.
PowerPoint. I'm Frank DeLeo from the West River Restoration Committee, and I'd like to thank the board, all the members, Ed and Tony, for all the support we've received throughout the years on this project. And I have some good news from the past year. On September 24, 2012, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment received a grant for $60,000 for final design and permitting of the Connolly Dam removal project. Connecticut Fund for the Environment assumed a leadership role. This was early 2012. The town had been sponsoring the project before that, and I'm sure most of you know this, but just to go over it. Tom Cleveland was our grant writer at the time, and he guided us through the first phase of the design process. Tom also assisted us in obtaining the services of Connecticut Fund for the Environment. We owe Tom a lot of thanks for what he's done. He really helped us going forward. Since Tom Cleveland's moved on, Connecticut Fund for the Environment has been involved, and Gwen McDonald has written for and received our latest grant to complete design and bring us to the construction phase of the dam removal process. Gwen has also applied for construction grants recently. We consider ourselves fortunate to have Connecticut Fund for the Environment on board. Now, what's happened is we've got a completion grant which will take us through permitting and up to the construction phase. And Connecticut Fund for the Environment also has another grant application in for the construction phase. So we're moving right along with this. That was one of the things that I thought was very significant that we achieved this year. So there's a possibility that the dam removal the construction can begin by August or fall of 2013. So that'd be great. Also, during the year we had several meetings with Cardinal Engineering regarding this status of the replacing of the Merritt Avenue Bridge. Tony, I think, buddy, did you know I spoke to you recently?
Yes. Yep.
And it looks like April, 100% design?
Right, and the last piece that we're waiting for is the environmental permits from the state. That's probably going to be the last thing to come in. Most of the right-of-way permits are finished, which was another big milestone. So
Great,
we're
yeah.
hoping for April to be complete, bidding in May, and construction in June.
Yeah, it looks like midsummer we
Could
should
be earlier, but
we should be able to
Yeah.
see some construction by midsummer.
yeah.
I think that's great. Those were the two objectives of our committee, were to get the first two objectives, were to get the bridge done and to get the dam removed, finally dam removed. So it looks like we're moving forward on that pretty well. Also, we had a meeting with the Corps of Engineers, and I just got an email from Jerry. It looks like they're ready to talk to us probably the end of January, beginning of February. So it looks like
That would be in relation to maybe dredging of the West River?
yeah, probably. Maybe they could do some channel work for us. If we have the dam taken down, the bridge fixed, and the channel work done, I mean, that's a home run. But I don't know if that's going to happen. It'd be nice if that would happen. But we'll hear more from them come February or late January. Also, October 18th, meeting was held concerning the initiation of a hazard mitigation program with the South Central Regional Council of Governments. And Ed knows about this. And Woodbridge would be a member of a multi-jurisdiction hazardous mitigation plan. The plan may become effective. I'm not going to hold you to this, but I thought you said maybe sometime next year.
Right.
Ed. And if it does, the plan is a prerequisite for the towns to apply for federal and state grants. So this is something I think that we talked to DEP many years ago, probably in 2008. You went up, and Tony, and I think Joe Hellhauser went up.
Right.
You know, we talked to people there, and in order to get these grants, we have to be part of this program. So,
Right.
so that's another.
That's good.
It was really a good
A
year
lot's being accomplished.
for our committee and for the town. Also, the drainage problem at Merritt Avenue. I guess the conduit pipe leading into the West River, draining that Route 15 Parkway there, was clogged, and Cardinal Engineering did that study, and they found that. I guess the state is supposed to be, they're aware, and it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
It's their
We're waiting on,
responsibility. Yeah.
they're going to repair it. They
Right.
will repair it, we just don't have a date on that yet, right?
Right.
They should be getting back to us on that. And the last thing I have was the culvert under Litchfield Turnpike, and the Luciani Road area there. That's also belongs to the state,
Right.
and we're waiting for a response on that. So
Right.
we have a lot of things in the works, but a few of them we need to get some more language back from the state on what they want to do with it.
Okay.
And I don't know if Gwen's here or not, but she hasn't arrived yet.
Good. Does anyone have any questions at all?
At any rate,
Thank you, Frank, for all the work you've done on this and being the spirit for doing this. Yeah.
I really want to thank the town officials and the board here. Greg's been to our meetings, and the rest of the people have been very helpful with this.
Okay.
Thank you all. And when Greg gets here, would be all right if she does a presentation.
It's right here.
Right here, how about that for time? That's good.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Right on target, she's got good timing.
Here's the letter you wanted.
Oh, thank you. Jeez, you guys work fast.
Sure, here's a little transcript.
Oh, thank you. That's great, thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce, would you take a seat, Gwen? I'd like to introduce Gwen McDonald, Fund for the Environment. Gwen wears many hats. She's director of Habitat Restoration for the Connecticut Fund for the Environment. She's also been taking the lead role on becoming like a project manager for this project, and she's good for all the grants that we received, we spoke about. And I'll let her take it from there.
Right.
She has more knowledge.
Frank has filled us in on all the developments, with the Connolly Dam, Merritt Avenue Bridge, et cetera, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, so
And
I
you told
guess
us about the grants we just got for 64,000, is it?
60,000. 60,000. So that was thanks to you all. So I want to back up for a minute and just talk about the West River as a whole and our involvement with a few different projects on it. To give you guys an idea of why we're interested in Pond Lily and why we think the West River is an exciting place to be working on. So I'm the Habitat Restoration Director for Safe the Sound, and in 2009 we were awarded a stimulus grant to restore tidal flow to the West River. So the West River in the 1920s, the city of New Haven restricted tidal flow from the West River, and what that means is they installed timber flap gates across the river. So they prevented salt water from getting into the river and dried out the marsh and made it possible for Westville, for example, to be where it is today, other urban New Haven to be developed as it is now. But in addition to that, they also built and preserved West River Memorial Park and Edgewood Park. And those are two Olmsted parks, and it's about 80 acres of potential marshland that has been left forested and is possible to be restored. So through the stimulus grant, we were given funding to install what are known as self-regulating tide gates. So these gates use the flow of water to actually float a ball and trip gates open and shut based on the tides. So we allow a controlled amount of water through these gates, and that restores a certain amount of marsh in the upper reaches of the watershed without flooding infrastructure. And there's also a backup gate so that in storms like Hurricane Sandy, the city can close it so they don't have to be concerned about anything failing. There's actually two gates.
Are those gates in West Haven? Excuse me, where are those gates located?
They're on Route 1, so it's actually between, it's not a very nice location, but it's between a liquor store and a car wash on Route 1 in
West Haven?
on the border of New Haven and West Haven, right down there. So it's an interesting place because it's a very urban area right at that location, and then you go upstream and just a few hundred yards upstream you have the Barnard School and a canoe launch, and it's a really nice area for urban New Haven people to experience nature in a way that they haven't been able to before. So that was our introduction to the West River. As a result of that project, we actually identified a second project on the river, and that was at Edgewood Park. So in Edgewood Park, as you move up, there's a pond that is well loved by the whole community. It was an Olmsted park, and people have been feeding ducks on that pond for 100 years. So that was important for people to preserve that function. And so what we were able to do is get additional funding to raise the walkways around the pond, so that now, even though there's more water, that the pond level will fluctuate every day, but people can walk around the pond, they can feed the ducks, there's areas of lawn where they can still hang out with their family and everything. So so we were able to preserve both those functions, and now, instead of it being sort of, just an exposed lawn, they're walking on a boardwalk, but they're also seeing native marsh plants that are growing as they would have, before humans were in New Haven. So as a result of that project, we, through Tom Cleveland, found out about you all and how you were trying to identify ways to mitigate flood problems that you're having with the West River upstream. So we come to today, and so Frank gave an update about some of the grants we've received. So where we are right now is we've completed the engineering design up to 60%, and so what that means is we're ready to begin permit applications to the state and to the Army Corps. So that's sort of a lengthy process. It could take 3 to 6 months. We have about 7 different applications that have to be filed, but it's a habitat restoration project, and they know us now. We've been bothering them about projects on the West River about every 6 months or so, so they know us quite well, and so we have confidence in that process will go smoothly. And so while those permits are being reviewed, we've hired an archaeologist, actually, as part of the requirement for getting federal funding, and they have to do a review of the site, because Connecticut is an old place and there's possible archaeological and historic evidence in a lot of different dams. This dam was built in 1794, so they want to make sure that we're preserving any history that we can. Unfortunately, for the historical significance of this site, the mill building, which was probably the most interesting feature, has been demolished. There was a fire, and so that there's probably not going to be any delay for the dam removal due to historical evidence, just because of how much disturbance has already occurred. So that's our next step, and fundraising for construction. But we have some good sources for that. We've already put in 2 applications, and you guys thank you for your letter of support. And so we're hoping at this point for the implementation of the dam removal in the fall of 2013. So that would hopefully provide some flood relief in the sort of smaller storm events for you all in the spring, starting of 2014, and maybe even that winter.
When we had a meeting with the representative of the DEP several years ago, he was indicating that application may be expedited because of the flood nature and all that. I don't know whether that would make any difference now if the time frame that you're setting up is relatively quick, but
yeah,
you did mention that, and I know you have this mitigation plan that you have to develop as well, not only for for the removal of the dam. So,
so at this point, I think the permit applications, the fact that it's a habitat restoration project expedites them somewhat. This is sort of a funny thing, but in order to be eligible for restoration funding, the state can't say this is an emergency, we're barring all permits, because we would actually exempt ourselves from funding, because if it's an emergency, then they have to apply for other funding sources. For some reason, we're not eligible for restoration funding. So the state is actually understands that we're moving forward, so they're not going to issue that kind of commands to us, because it would exempt us from funding. So, but actually, we'll probably have our permits in hand before the fish passage season is over. So the fish passage season runs until the end of June, and that's sort of the reason for this whole project, which I guess I should say. In our minds, the benefit of removing the Pond Lily Dam is to restore fish passage and river connectivity of the West River from from the river that you all know, which is a series of reservoirs and a cold water trout stream, down to the coastal zone in New Haven, which has alewives and herring and striped bass and bluefish. So those fish in the transition zone, which is where Pond Lily falls, those fish would actually, you'd see both kinds of those fish. So we're hoping to get some sea-run trout, and we're hoping to increase the population of river herring, which is on the candidate for uplisting on the endangered species list.
And the other thing, of course, is that this dam is owned by the New Haven Land Trust, and they're cooperating with us in this project to remove it.
Right, and I mean, I want to thank you all again for both your financial contribution and really getting the ball rolling on this, and it really wouldn't have been started without all of you. And I think initially there was some resistance from the landowner about removing the dam, but at this point they are 100% on board, and they're also interested in engaging with several local youth groups, both Common Ground High School and Solar Youth, who will be stewards of the site after the construction is complete. So trail maintenance and installation of signs and other educational opportunities for that area, and hopefully in the long run connecting to your trail system up here in Woodbridge. So.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I was going to ask about the New Haven Land Trust. I remember in the early stages they were, well, they had some concerns, I guess, and compliance and permissions. Anyway, I was going to ask about that, but it sounds like a terrific project. You're reporting good progress. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, guys.
It's consistent with what I understand to be a nationwide effort to remove dams and restore the free flow of rivers. And I know just recently the state suspended, I guess, what was an ongoing effort to restore Atlantic salmon to the Connecticut River. So maybe this effort on a smaller scale will be successful with the species you mentioned.
Yes, that's definitely correct. Connecticut has 4,500 regulated dams, and that doesn't include culverts. That doesn't include when your driveway caves in and over a river. It doesn't include dams that people don't know about. And we have about 7,000 river miles. So it's almost 1-to-1 if you count all the barriers. So a barrier per mile is really almost what we have in Connecticut. So while that gives me some job security, I guess. It also, there's a lot of work to be done. But this is a great project, and hopefully we'll restore some fish.
Well, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment has been instrumental in bringing this forward, so we appreciate that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I also I have a PDF of a presentation. If I can an email address for someone if anyone's interested. It just outlines the status of the project and has a bunch of pictures that might more help illustrate
Sure.
some of the things I've talked about.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank you, Glenn, for being here. With regard to the land trust, I spoke with Luce in Beauport recently, and he seems to be comfortable with the idea, and I think most of the other members of the land trust are happy with the situation as it is with the dam, because it needed repair, and it would cost the money down the line at any rate. So I think most of the folks down there
Good.
agree with the idea. Thanks again for being here.
All right.
For all the work you've done. I can't thank you enough for getting involved, and for the Connecticut Fund being involved also.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is a letter in support of a Connecticut Microbrew grant and loan pilot program. And in your packet is a copy of the application that has been filed by the town with the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, and a proposed letter in support. So Tony, do you want to just comment on the application?
Sure. The application is actually a first part of a feasibility portion of the actual grant process, which is the second step. And so this is basically a pre-application, if you will, to see if the project that is being presented is one that will work with the grant and have some possibility of success. Just as a way of background, and there's no obligation here, it's a just a feasibility application that was prepared. The microgrid, as a way of background, is a proposed, essentially what it says is it's a proposed grid for connecting the town buildings to an independent power source that would be probably, most likely, undergrounded and either be available all the time or at certain times in case of a power disruption. So it's essentially would have a power source that would serve all the town buildings with underground, so that in the event of a storm or something of that nature, we would continue to have regular power here in the town center. And one of the two things that were attractive about our particular operation was the natural gas supply, which is also underground, but serves as an energy source. And the fact that all the buildings are very close together. There's a lot of work done by Joe on this also, and so we wanted to get a letter of support from the board.
And this all started out because UI designated two towns in their energy supply district, that's Woodbridge and Stratford, for this project, which has a number of steps to go through. The next is the feasibility with the DEP, so they single out Woodbridge because of the close location of all the town buildings. So we're pursuing this without making any commitment as to how it would be paid for, but that's another question. But each step you have to go along the line. So, and we had the help of a consulting firm who assisted us with this application at no expense to the town, and their name is
Weston and Sampson.
Weston and Sampson. They're in Newington, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. So what we're asking tonight is just that we need a letter of support from the Board of Selectmen for this application. So I entertain a motion to approve. I think there's a draft letter in your packet.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just, Ed, I think I told you this story. After the governor and the commissioner, the deep commissioner, were here at Amity High School to talk about the natural gas line. And anyway, I bumped into the commissioner a week or two later, and I thanked him again for coming to Woodbridge, and he said he remembered instantly that Woodbridge was one of the two towns identified for this microgrid pilot, and he indicated that he'd like to see us go full speed ahead with this. So it was a vote of confidence from a pretty high place.
Right. Well, that's good. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other discussion? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Next is the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We have in your packet a blanket resolution authorizing the first selectman to execute documents. And this basically is required if we're to receive any money from Homeland Security. This this authorization, resolution has to be approved, so it would be something to be on file if we were to receive money from them. So I'd entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Next is recommendation from the Personnel Committee.
Okay. The Personnel Committee met, and there were a few recommendations which we wanted to pass along to you. First is yeah, that's that. request to refer the issue of hours worked by salaried individuals, which would be the full-time staff, for at the shelter during Hurricane Sandy. And the hours are listed on the sheet in front of you. And the request was to give some consideration to the fact that the individuals listed worked a lot of hours during a short period of time. And so after reviewing it, the Personnel Committee made a recommendation for $1,000 to Lee Canning and to Mary Ellen, and $500 each to Suzanne and Nancy Fund for their efforts.
And that was based on a recommendation from the Human Services Commission,
Right.
who recommended that, now these people all are salaried people, so they, it was felt by the Human Services Commission for the time that those four individuals put in during Storm Sandy, and it was also the feeling of the Personnel Committee, which consists of myself and Lawrence and Rothier and Tom Kennefic. So we have before you a request for that payment that Tony described. So I didn't get it on the floor. I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Next.
Next is the, there was been a request by the police department for, as you know, we have a new IT coordinator over at the police department. And we've gone over that process at prior meetings. And so the request was for a stipend of $500 per quarter for the additional duty for the IT coordinator at the police department, which is Sergeant Thomas. In light of the additional duties that he's undertaken.
So I entertain a motion to approve that stipend.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay. There's one, we have one more. Every year, the Personnel Committee does department head reviews. And part of the review process is to compare not only the performance of, but the salary of each department head and how it relates to other towns and other, to make sure that there's an equitable pay and equals responsibilities here in the town. So after that review had taken place, there are a few recommendations for you to consider. So I'm going to just list them for you and then we can discuss them. There is a recommendation by the Personnel Committee for a $2,500 increase in salary for the library director, Todd Fabian. There is a recommendation of a $2,500 increase in salary for the town clerk, and that would be Stephanie Charlotte, and then an increase of 2% for both the deputy chief and the lieutenant at the police department. Those are the salary increases that were recommended. There is also a recommendation of a one-time stipend for Terry Gilbertson in acknowledgement and recognition and thanks for his work with the Public Works Facility Committee. $1,500. Those were the recommendations of the Personnel Committee for your review.
So just to fill in about those increases for the library and town clerk, I think that's based on having similar pay for towns that are similarly situated to Woodbridge for those positions. And as far as Terry Gilbertson goes, he has worked above and beyond the call of duty for his work in connection with putting together this public works facility, which has been 25 years in the making. So I we thank him for that. So that's the background for that. So I'd entertain a motion to approve those recommendations.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is to authorize the first selectman and finance director to lock in the best bid for diesel, gasoline, and heating oil.
Okay, we are at that time again where we are going to go out to bid for diesel and gasoline mostly is what we would use, but also heating oil for a few facilities, which includes the country club, and that's would be our big heating oil user, and the Darling House. And then it would be gasoline and diesel, and also in addition to the Bethany, Orange, Woodbridge, and Amity, with it also includes the Regents it's Prospect school system, which also will be joining our bid this year. So as you are probably aware, the town of Woodbridge coordinates all the documents, coordinates the bid process, and
We do all the work.
we do all the legwork basically.
And we get our stuff for free?
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't.
Right, unfortunately. But when you get these bids awarded, typically there's a tight time frame of, because the market changes so quickly. So, and similar to when we discussed natural gas, this is something we do every year that we wouldn't have the ability to wait till your next meeting to be able to award it.
Right.
Right. So that's the request.
So I'd entertain a motion to authorize the first selectman and finance director to lock in the best bid for diesel, gasoline, and heating oil.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the Director of Finance and Operations report, and we'll start off with your monthly report.
Okay. Okay. The report for the first 6 months of the fiscal year gives us a budgetary surplus of about $141,000. That would leave our fund balance at $4.67 million, or just under 11.10% of our budget. I'll go over a few of the items that we discussed previously, just including a $60,000 distribution from the revenue sharing grant program from the state. That was an unanticipated item. There's a surplus projected in department revenues of about $25,000. Both conveyance fees, town clerk fees, zoning permits, and building permits are trending ahead of budget this year. So collectively, those items will probably generate a surplus of about $93,000. In contrast, the latest projection from our Billy Casper, working with Billy Casper, was a revenue shortfall of approximately $68,000. In the country club, that's down. That's actually lower than by a few $1,000s from the last report. So as those numbers, I'll keep you updated each month on that. In expenses, we had 2 workers' compensation claims that you were aware of. That'll create a deficit in that department of $58,000. So we have to keep an eye on that and fund that. There is a surplus in the Amity budget of $85,000. And with Hurricane Sandy, several of our departments, police, fire, public works, human services, all had unbudgeted expenditures due to Sandy. And there's contracted, so you'll see some of the items in the line items in the budget appear to be over budget by a significant amount. And those are Sandy-related items that include some vehicle repairs, some fuel, a lot of overtime in police and in public works, contracted services for debris removal, also some of the payroll accounts that are tied to overtime, which would be some of the percentage matches and retirement and FICA. So all of that is put together and compiled, and we will be applying for a 75% reimbursement from FEMA. So we hope to do that by the end of January. We have most of the information sort of in process and hopefully almost complete by the next week or so. Then we'll review it and send it in for reimbursement.
We had a kickoff meeting with representatives of FEMA about 3 weeks ago. Went over the procedures, and so I think we're in pretty good shape.
They were reimbursed for food that was spent during the storm period, vehicle wear and tear.
How long does it generally take to get reimbursed?
I would say probably, you'll get notified of your amount probably in 2 months. And then hopefully the reimbursement will be in by the end of the fiscal year.
Should be in this fiscal year.
Yeah, but if we get the notice on reimbursement, we can book that as a revenue. So then it becomes a cash flow issue as opposed to a revenue recognition on the budget.
Okay, any questions on the monthly report? If not, then we can get into funding requests, the first of which is number 1213-11, $12,322. And that's from contingency.
Correct. This is a transfer. If you remember during the capital budget meetings, this was discussed by the Country Club of Woodridge Commission and the Billy Casper, and there was somewhat of an urgency for this. So this is something that can be removed from the capital budget if in fact you decide to transfer the funds this month. And it's for the installation of 2 slightly used motors and a submersible pump for the irrigation system at the Country Club.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve funding request number 1213-11, $12,322.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I remember the conversation during the capital budget presentation, and I commend all of you for the savings that this represents over brand new pumps. I just say sort of a process question, I guess. Very often, Tony, you provide a spreadsheet that shows the whole contingency fund. And,
Is that right here?
Yeah.
I didn't get that. And I don't necessarily need it. I just want you to know I'm missing it.
Right. Okay. I won't tell you how much
It's
to
like
get up.
it's like a security thing.
But there is, let's see, $142,000 in there.
We'll send that out.
So
to you.
we'll send that out to you.
Okay. Next is funding request.
We need to vote.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimously. Next is funding request number 1213-12, $1,980.
Yeah, actually, and I wanted to change the account number on this one. First, let me explain what it is. We have a security system here at Town Hall, which is a key fob system, and we had one of the network computer parts in the system failed on us. We had to replace it. Somewhat of an emergency. This is to fund that replacement. I would like to change it from contingency to 1191-00, which is a former fire station. There's some funds in the electricity account there because we haven't used the building to where we thought we would in last year's budget process. And then the object is 55221. That's electricity from the former firehouse.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve funding request number 1213-12, $1,980.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And next is a recommendation from a resident to establish an emergency fund for storms. And you'll see I had an exchange, I had an email from a Dr. Stephen H. Polmar, who was very satisfied with the town's handling of Hurricane Sandy and wanted to make a donation. How we could make a donation. I informed him that the Volunteer Fire Association can be recipient of funds, as well as the Woodbridge Human Services Commission. And but the question he raises is, should we set up a separate townwide reserve fund to be used in the event of emergencies? And I told him that I would bring that to the Board of Selectmen for their consideration. So is that something that you think we should look into, a separate reserve fund where residents could make contributions for use in emergencies such as the 3 storms we experienced in the past year and a half?
So in other words, instead of having the volunteer fire department direct funds or control funds, or having human services control funds, in theory, the town would.
That'd be a third option. They could
Third
give to
option.
one, the fire, they could give to human services,
Or they could do this.
Right.
My first thought was, I thought your letter was a good one, and I think the two options suffice. That's my first thing.
Is the whole point to that only residents would, the town doesn't put money into this fund? It would just be if people want to.
Yeah, I think it would be just for the general public to do that. That's something you can think about. I mean, I don't, is there a feeling here now? Or
Well, my feeling is we should explore it. I mean, I sort of feel like it would be nice to have those potential funds available
Mhm.
for issues that perhaps are not covered by Human Services Commission or what the Volunteer Fire Association would choose to spend money on, because and I think it gives us as a town a little more flexibility to be able to reach out and help citizens.
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying, that, it seems like yet another fund, but it's voluntary contributions, it's something people might want to be interested in, and I'm always happy to see somebody volunteer with a good idea, so I think we ought to think about it.
Why don't we see what other towns do, that they've established
Yeah,
these
that's
kind of
a good
funds?
idea.
We can check with CCM and we'll get back to you on that.
That's a very good idea.
Okay, great. Okay, and we do have something under other. We have in your packet, I think tonight, there's a handwritten note from Susan M. Plant, is that it? Who gave us this note? And you can see that her family would like to place a bench with a plaque on the Fitzgerald Memorial Trail in memory of her mother, Maria Victoria Stone Leary. This bench will be similar to the existing one and across from her childhood home at 139 Beecher Road. We've done this in the past with Private Sue Freen and with Mr. Murphy, who was a son who grew up in Woodbridge, and his parents lived here after he moved on, and he was killed in 9/11.
There's also one down at the tennis courts.
Tennis courts, okay.
Was donated.
So if that's your feeling, I suppose the Board of Selectmen has to approve this, then if that's your option to do that, we would have it coordinated through Adam Parsons, who's coordinated these other benches as well. So that's the location.
He would sign off on design and
Right.
installation.
And location.
I think it's lovely.
Very nice.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve that, subject to the family working it out with Adam Parsons as the location, etc. So, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. That gets us now down to the town clerk's report. And you have in your packet a copy of the town clerk's report, so I would entertain a motion to approve the town clerk's report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next are appointments. The first of which is to the Quinnipiac Valley Health District Board of Directors alternate for a term ending June 30, 2015. And you have a nomination?
We do. Roy Evans, our current chairman of the CMS.
Okay. We have Roy's resume here. He's, I can tell you that he's a very dedicated citizen of Woodbridge. He participates in the EMS council. He's been a consultant to us when we had some problems with our workers' compensation through MIRMA. So I know I can speak very highly of him. So I would second that. So, any other nominations? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have two other appointments, Recreation Commission and Economic Development Commission. So we don't have any nominations tonight, but we'll be working on that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the first Selectmen's report. And as I indicated, we since we last met on December 13th, we did have a FEMA kickoff meeting for Sandy reimbursement. And And on December 15th, I spoke at the memorial service for Bob Gregg at the Congregational Church. You know, Bob lived to be 90-plus years and was active in our town up to the very end. So he was very interested in our community, and so it was very well attended. On December 17th, following the Newtown tragedy, I met with Dr. Stella and Chief Marcucci, Deputy Chief Stewart, Lieutenant Libby, and the assistant principal at Amity High School to review the security at Beecher Road School in the aftermath of that tragedy. And as a result of that, Police Officer Vincent Lynch has been assigned to the Beecher Road School full-time for the duration of the school year. Officer Lynch is also the DARE officer who had been at the Woodbridge, at Beecher Road School on a part-time basis, so he's very familiar with the school, and he's very well liked by the faculty, teachers, administration, and the students. And as you probably know, Officer Rizzuti, who is the student resource officer at Amity High School, is there on a full-time basis. And Amity has 3 security officers in addition to Officer Rizzuti. Dr. Stella has made one change about access to the school, that he has eliminated the swipe card system, so that everybody who wants to gain entrance to the school during the normal school day has to be buzzed in. You don't get in automatically, and that's I think is a good thing. So, and I know that Dr. Stella was at a conference on Monday. There were some 800 educators attended in West Hartford to look at ways to enhance security at our schools. And that'll be an ongoing discussion that we'll have. Following that, on December 23rd, we had a candlelight vigil on the Center Green here as to the Newtown tragedy. We had over 300 people that attended that. And we had 5 clergy members, Senior Pastor Miles Ahrens of the Trinity Evangelical Church, Bishop Adam Brinkerhoff of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Rabbi Joel Levinson of Congregation B'nai Jacob, Father Gene Ginelli, pastor of Our Lady of the Assumption Church, and our own Tom Canific, who's a selectman, is chaplain of the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association, as well as Reverend Sarah Penn Straw of the First Church of Christ, Woodbridge. So we had a vigil light ceremony. It was good, and I think all of us felt better as a result of that. On Tuesday, we had a meeting with representatives of UI and the police, fire, public works, and human services for lessons learned from Storm Sandy. And so we hopefully felt that cooperation between UI and the town was very good, and we hope to continue that. In your packet, you have a letter from Scott Fabian dated December 31, 2012, concerning the installation of new carpeting at the library. And so that's going to result in the closing of the library. On Friday, February 1st, the meeting room will be closed, and that'll reopen on Monday, February 4th. And then on February 6th through February 8th, that's a Wednesday through Friday, the main stairwell and the main floor will be recarpeted. So the library will be closed on those days, but will reopen on Saturday, February 9th. And then just to remind members of the Board of Selectmen, we will have our regular meeting on January 23, which will be a joint meeting with the Board of Finance, and we'll receive a report from the Beecher Road Building Committee as to proposed renovations to the Beecher Road School. So that's my report, and that gets us to